nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll begin with the agenda for the Douglas County Board of Equalization. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner Kavanaugh, Commissioner Duda, Commissioner Kraft, Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner Rogers. Madam Chair.
Here, item A, approval of the minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held Tuesday, October 4th, 2016. And item B, call for a meeting and set Tuesday, October 18th, 2016 as a date for hearing on certified assessment corrections reflecting the addition of omitted property to the tax rolls or increased value on property. Motion by Boyle, second by Kraft. Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Commissioner Rod, there we go. Motion passes.
Citizen comments. Is there anyone in the chamber wishing to speak to the Board of Equalization about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to resolutions. The first resolution is denial of a late filed application for 2016 exemptions of real and personal property. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Goodwillie, Douglas County Assessor Register of Deeds Office. Let me grab the appropriate item. These are late files after the June 30th grace period. Despite the reminder letters we typically send in December, April, and June, there are two of these that are slightly different than the others. The second item down on agenda item D, the Jesuit Academy's piece with a parcel number that ends in 1 and then 4 zeros, and then the Girls Incorporated piece that's a little bit further down. Those were purchased rather late in the day. Statute by law, properties that go from non-exempt entities to exempt entities have to be purchased and applied for by the 1st of July. I know Girls Inc. was purchased in August. I had some additional conversations with Ms. Wilhelm, who the title is going to escape me. I want to say is the president of the organization or chairman of the organization. And she indicated that at this juncture, they had some ambitious plans for the place that would clearly qualify, but at this juncture, they really hadn't raised any money for it. They had some people living there to be sure the property didn't deteriorate, but at least at this juncture, they weren't actively using it for an exempt purpose. The statutes are pretty clear about the application deadlines. I don't know that we have the luxury of saying to the state of Nebraska that does the oversight over our office at least, we don't care what the law says. So we feel like we have to recommend denial on these. With that, I suspect in fact I know there are a number of people from the organizations that will probably want to address the board today.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyle.
Well, do you want to take these in order, or do you want to go right to the Girls Inc.?
I don't care. I think there are some other folks that want to talk. Whether we want to take them in order or not, it doesn't make any difference to me.
Okay, well, why don't we go to the Jesuit Academy first then?
Sure.
Anybody
Is there
here
someone here wishing to speak? Come on down. Good morning.
Good morning. Please give your name.
My name's Tom Hoy. I'm the president of Jesuit Academy.
Okay, and what can you tell us about this request?
So for the one that came through just now in June, this goes to the overall issue that we had in terms of just being aware of the process for the filings. So we were late on all of them, and I was rather new in the position, and our administrative staff was turned over, and so as a result, we were not aware of what needed to happen in order to maintain this status, and I've expressed our apologies many times and regret that this is an error of knowledge rather than just oversight.
Commissioner Boyle.
I'd like to ask you, can you just briefly explain what the Jesuit Academy is?
So the Jesuit Academy is a 20-year-old school just off 22nd and Lake. We are a school that for 4th grade through 8th grade, all boys, was founded with the intention of trying to help just quell the violence and poverty in North Omaha through education. We have a 100% high school graduation rate from our students, now 20 years into it. We track our students after they leave school, into high school, and into advanced education, whether it be a 4-year school or a 2-year school. 90% of our families are free and reduced lunch and from the neighborhood, many of the students are walking to school.
Are you recognized by any governmental agency as being nonprofit?
We are a nonprofit, yes.
Do you know by whom? Internal Revenue or?
I'd have to double check all
Okay.
the status of that, yeah.
Okay, but you don't pay any taxes on it?
Correct.
Okay. Well, you know, as I've long said, I think the reason that the people of the United States and governments and all across the country, state government, local government, has cut out a spot for nonprofits is that the contribution that you make to our community, that kind of nonprofits make to our community, whether it be a religion or a school. And I'm familiar somewhat with what your facility does, and it's very impressive from what I've seen. And of course, that I didn't realize you had a 100% graduation rate, which is very, very good. I have always felt that these deadlines that they're artificial. They are just don't rise to the level of importance of your work, what nonprofits are established for in the first place. So I will, unless there's other discussion, I'd make a motion that we grant the nonprofit status exemption that the taxpayer is entitled to.
Is that for both the first two?
Yes, it is.
First two Jesuit Academy ones? Did you second it, Commissioner? Okay. Motion by Commissioner Boyle, seconded by Commissioner Rogers. Any further questions or comments, Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Didn't we have the Jesuit Academy before us earlier this year on a similar question?
They have 4 parcels. They file late for one, hadn't filed for these, and then now finally they've gotten around to filing on these 3.
Okay. And I think on the previous application, we granted their waiver. Am I right there?
Yes.
Okay. Mr., is it DuBois?
Hoy, H-O-Y.
On that previous one, were the same factors at work there that you outlined for us here?
Correct.
And I understand you've recently come into this position. There was a change in that your predecessor, I believe, went to Creighton Prep. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So you're kind of in a transition year here?
Correct.
And now that you're there, and we've been through these a few times, I hope you could assure us that this won't occur in the future.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Never happened in the 20 years of the existence of the school.
Not that I'm aware of, sir. No.
I think, for all of those reasons, I'd support Commissioner Boyle's resolution.
Commissioner Duda?
Thank you. The usual question for our attorney, do we have the right to do this, to grant them the exemption?
The law says that if they file, they have to file within a certain time frame. They didn't do that. And then it says, in addition, there shall be a penalty that's imposed.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Boyle?
Well, I think this is something we need, after this is over today, I intend to talk to our legislative guy, Marcos, and maybe this is something we need to get hammered out with the legislature. If these issues are brought to us and there is no decision, we can only rubber stamp what's brought before us. I think it is smokescreen, and I think it's a waste of time for the people who come here if all we can do is do what we're told to do by the assessor's office. It doesn't make any sense if we don't have discretion. And if we don't have discretion, then quit putting it on our agenda. So, and I firmly believe that the status as a nonprofit organization doing good for the community simply outweighs some deadline. It just doesn't compute for me. So that's why I am strongly in favor of granting these exemptions when they're just overlooked. Change of leadership, which happens in nonprofits a lot. So that's why I make these motions, and I hope this will pass today.
Commissioner Rogers?
If I'm correct, the issue before us is the exemption itself. The issue before us is giving them the exemption.
Exactly right.
Okay.
And statutorily, it's quite clear. The application shall be filed by the 31st of December of the year prior to which the exemption is sought. They're given a grace period until the 30th of June of that exemption year, and after that, it's done, period. And that's been the stance of the state Supreme Court. This is really black letter law. And the reason we bring these to you is because once an application gets filed, the board has to rule by law. And the reason we recommend, look, it would be nice to be able to say, you know, we think this is a swell organization, as are the other churches and so forth on the list. We think we have the luxury of being able to say that shall file by a certain time is something that our office can clearly waive. But we have state oversight that requires us to follow state law and regulations, and so we're going to cut square corners.
Well, the reason I just wanted to ask is to what Teresa made the point of. If, you know, they're late, there's a matter of grace. I think everybody
June 30 is the grace.
Okay.
From January 1 to June 30 is the grace period.
Well, then I guess if the law said they should come before us to make the decision, you get another shot at the apple. I'm going to give you grace unless the board overstates it. But my point I wanted to make is, if we're talking about the exemption, they would have got the exemption anyway. My thought is you get the exemption. Now, to what Teresa was saying, if you got a late fee for being late, that's a whole nother thing because you were late, if that's what you're saying. Well, how I heard you interpret it is that the exemption is one thing, but I heard you say something like a late fee. If and I'm just saying if there's a late fee, then you got to pay the late fee. But the exemption itself, that's what we're voting on. I agree you should get the exemption. The late fee is a whole nother thing. So I'm voting to give you exemption. If there's a late fee, you were late, so you got to pay the late fee if there's a late fee. Thank you.
Did you have a question, sir?
Well, so when I was here last time, the exemption was granted with no penalty. The work subsequent to that was around the additional parcels that we were unaware were part of this. So to me, in principle, would seem that we've already passed through the granting of the exemption. And again, unbeknownst to us, with the number of parcels we had to do additional filings to bundle this all back together, which we hadn't done because we'd only been here the first time for the one parcel. So to me, it seems like we're here because we have additional parcels under the same communication that went out, and I'm not discounting the importance of that in any manner, and I'm grateful that we even have a chance to be here. But that said, I think that the principle seemed much more evident to us when we were here, last time through.
Okay.
See, that's what happens when you hear from Jesuits.
No further questions or comments. There is a motion and a second. And this is for the first three items, Mike, right?
Yeah, the Jesuit Academy had the first three.
Okay, first three items on the resolution D. Please vote.
Oops.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here. Is there anyone else wishing to speak about any of the items under Resolution D?
I don't know, are we next or?
Either one.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Linda Banta.
My name is Jay Banta. I am the local spiritual assembly chairman for the Baha'i community in Omaha.
And I'm the treasurer. Our secretary couldn't be here today. She was the one who initially thought she had filed the application for exemption, and we came into our positions in April. And I had no idea that there was even an issue with this until we got a postcard in the mail saying that our property was in arrears, or taxes were in arrears, and then we got a registered letter telling about the meeting that was held in September, I believe. And then she talked with someone, and they said that this person was going to take it off the agenda for that meeting. And anyway, so it's kind of a convoluted thing. But you want to read what she wrote?
This is Carmen Payne is our secretary. Unfortunately, due to work requirements, she's not able to be here today. But she sent us a letter along with the other members of the local spiritual assembly. Please accept my apologies for not being on top of the issue that resulted from my lack of attention. I spoke with a representative of the board and was told that it would be in our best interest to have someone present at the meeting on Tuesday morning at 9. There is no paperwork required, however. She suggested having an explanation as to why the appropriate form was not submitted in a timely manner. I have no reason other than I forgot, even though we were sent an email as a reminder. I did submit a completed form to the Douglas County Exemption Board via email on September 12th of 2016. Carmen Payne.
So we had a meeting last week, and we were talking about this issue, and we looked in the files, and there definitely is the original form that says we have the nonprofit status tax exemption. So this is the first time, in my knowledge, this has ever happened, and I simply think it had something more to do with her having too much on her plate at the time, and thought she had done it. Didn't get it done, one of those things. It's not my fault kind of thing. I don't feel that we're taking responsibility. We just want to clarify how this all kind of came about.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Boyle?
Well, let me ask you, does the Baha'i Assembly have nonprofit status from any governmental body? Are you?
Yes, that's what we saw the form that said we had nonprofit status. Yeah.
All right.
I didn't bring it with me, but.
That's all right. And the work that you do is religious and.
Yes, it's a religious group. Yes.
And one of the other qualifiers is you don't serve alcohol anytime on your premises.
No, it's
No.
it's actually a tenet of our faith that we do
Absolutely.
not partake of that.
Well, I asked that because there are 5 criteria generally for obtaining nonprofit status, and I just wanted to throw that out there
Sure.
because I'm sure that you don't. This again is really right in line with the feelings that I have, and I think the majority of this board has, that you are performing a service for our community. Churches, religious faiths of all types are entitled to the status where they don't have to pay taxes because of what you contribute. And I think in all fairness and being equitable about it, you should be granted the exemption to which you're entitled. So if there's no one else that wants to speak, I'll make that motion that you be granted the tax exemption to which I think we believe that you're entitled to.
Thank you.
Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Motion by Commissioner Boyle, seconded by Commissioner Rogers. Any further questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes.
Thank you for coming down.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you very much.
for your listening,
Yep, you
understanding.
bet.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm, thank you.
And I think there was somebody over here. Good morning.
Good morning, Amy Lawrenson with Barrett Home. Barrett Home acts as general counsel to Girls Inc., so I'm here today with the executive director for Girls Inc., Roberta Wilhelm. Mr. Goodwill has already mentioned that this property was actually acquired after that cure period, that grace period. It was acquired on August 22nd, so actually submitting that application wouldn't have been right, but wouldn't have been timely for Girls Inc. to even submit that application until they owned the property. And, once it was acquired, it was something that Girls Inc. went into immediate actions to put that property into use. What they are doing is doing active planning, having board meetings, trying to decipher the best use of the property, but there are immediate uses of the property at this time, actually. They are using the property right now for some planning facilities, trying to figure out, security measures. They've secured the building. They have had active meetings in the facility to determine the best use of the facility, and they've also had board meetings with the board of directors for Girls Inc. to determine the best use of the building. I think it's also important to note that this facility was used by an exempt entity for a majority of this year otherwise. And really, Girls Inc., if it's a matter of form over matter of putting some classes in there immediately to get the tax exemption, they can do that. The building's secure, the building's heated. But right now, they're really just trying to do all the fundraising for the programming that this building will be used for, which I think Mr. Goodwillie has recognized that will be absolutely an exempt use for the facility. So really, Girls Inc. is just looking for the exemption that is granted on all their other properties, and I think that everybody recognizes that this will be a great use for the property and a great benefit to our community.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyle?
Yes, I'd like to ask the obvious question. Girls Inc. is recognized as a nonprofit by...
Yes, they have a 501c designation from the Internal Revenue Service, and they also have a nonprofit filing with the state of Nebraska.
Okay. What really strikes me as even more powerful that we should grant this group the exemption is that it was impossible for them to ask for the exemption because they didn't own the building. They bought it. I mean, we shouldn't be operating, saying to a nonprofit, unless you buy it by this date, then you're out. That's just even more artificial regulation that just is nonsensical. So,
well, that's what the statute actually says. When a for-profit is getting it from a nonprofit, and this thing has flipped. What happened in the spring is, I think it was a monastery sold it to a for-profit entity for a couple of $100,000. They turned around a few months later. I mean, the exemption expired once they sold it to the for-profit entity, and now the for-profit entity flips it, sells it to these folks after the July 1 statutory deadline. That's the point. If the property's on the tax rolls as of July 1, the intent of the statute is clearly to leave it there even though it's purchased afterward. So that's the point. I mean, you couldn't, because at that juncture, the legislature says, okay, we want the base, at least with respect to exemptions, to be as close to final as we can so political subdivisions can do their budgeting and levy setting.
So we should close our eyes to the actual ownership, which is owned by a nonprofit. And for those who are kind of at a loss what this is, I believe it is the convent at St. Bernard's Catholic Church on Military Avenue that was some years ago changed to a Poor Clare's monastery. And ironically, I had an uncle, Mike Kelly, no relation to the Mike Kelly, who had a sister who was a member of the Poor Clares. So I'm somewhat familiar with the operation out there, what it is, and it's a convent. It's where the nuns lived when they had lots of nuns teaching at St. Bernard's. So to suggest it's going to be turned into something else other than living facility is kind of a leap. And we have granted exemptions on property like this, similar to the use for a lot of reasons, not the use necessarily, but years ago the Italian Heritage Group came down here, probably 6 or 7 years ago, and they had a vacant lot on 132nd Street, and the assessor wanted to tax it, and so in probing them and talking to them at the podium, it came out that they had met there, they had been there, they had talked to architects on the site and so forth, and so the exemption was granted. And I think you've done the same thing. You actually have somebody living there now, don't you?
Yes, we have one of the directors for Girls Inc. living in the facility, in part to maintain the security of the facility and also for planning purposes of the facility, to get used to the facility and, know the best use for the facility. She's helping in part of that planning quite actively. And to address some of Mr. Goodwillie's concerns, if I may.
Yes.
I actually would feel that the statute's quite silent to this type of an acquisition. The intent of the law might be that it was to stay on the tax rolls, but I don't think that the law actually states that specifically. And I think in a situation like this, where the property is only held by a for-profit, and I would argue just as a conduit to move it between two nonprofits for an extremely short period of time, a fraction of the time when you're looking at how much it's been held by a nonprofit, the intent of the law is not to have it taxable for the entire year.
Right. And I think those kinds of transactions you talked about, If we were to intervene and say that really causes causes it to go on the tax rolls, really would be a chilling effect on people who want to step in and help nonprofits and transfer property. I just think this one is a real clear example that an exemption is warranted. So I'll make a motion that the exemption that you request is granted.
Is there a second? Commissioner Rogers?
So, nonprofit had it, for-profit had it, till July,
August, actually.
till August. July was the deadline.
Yes,
For-profit had it till August.
yes.
They bought it till August. They bought it in,
Bought in the spring, had it till what, the 8th of August or 22nd of August?
22nd of August. And
22nd,
I
I'm sorry.
believe it might have been shorter time that they actually owned the property.
for-profit bought it in the spring, had it till August. You all bought it in,
We acquired it on August 22nd.
so they gotta be responsible for the whole year. It can't be prorated.
There's no proration. In Nebraska, exemptions are an all or nothing proposition.
Yeah, I just don't know what to say. That sounds kind of, even though ownership is transferred, you're responsible for the whole deal.
And I know Mr. Goodwill might have the records, but my understanding was the acquisition was later. Can you verify what date it was acquired by the for-profit? I thought it was actually June, but I could be incorrect on that.
No,
don't have the date.
I thought it was late spring. I don't have the 521.
Okay, I do not either, but.
It was acquired with a for-profit in June.
So my understanding was a period of June to August is the extent of the for-profit ownership. And during that time, it wasn't actively used for profit other than to do the sale. But it's almost as though it just fell in the magical months where it could be taxable. If it would have happened in March, if it would have happened in April, January, any of those other times, of course, Girls Inc. would have complied with the law, would have had this submitted before that time, and there would have been no question. Because it fell in with one of the months where it could have been taxable.
And if it would have happened in July, it would have been non, because the nonprofit before would have still owned it. When was the deadline? The deadline was June?
June 30th.
It's July 1. There is a mechanism.
So if it would have been bought on July 2nd, it technically would have been still in the nonprofit's hand. If a for-profit would have, if a for-profit would have bought, if it would have been, if it would have been nonprofit in July and a for-profit would have brought it in August, would it still stay nonprofit?
No, it would come off, when it goes from nonprofit to for-profit, if that occurs before levy date, it comes on the tax rolls.
Okay, so if this situation would have been reversed and a nonprofit would have owned it till this point and a for-profit would have bought it, it would have immediately been on the tax rolls.
It comes on the tax rolls, you bet.
But if a for-profit sells it to a nonprofit, it stays for-profit till the next year.
Yes.
Okay. Then I know what my vote is now.
Yeah, Commissioner Boyle.
I made a motion. I think there was a
Oh, I'm
second.
sorry, I thought your light was on.
No, it was. I turned it off.
Okay. No further questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming down.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing? Okay, come on down.
Oh, we got more, sweet.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Pam Cummings. I'm speaking on behalf of Shepherd of the Hills Lutheran Church. I'm not really good at speaking off the cuff, so I have a letter that I've kind of written out to read from. I am the current treasurer of the church, and I took this office in March of this year. And with me is Mr. Robert Hoff. He's our council president. And I'm appealing to the board to reconsider the recommendation for disapproving our property tax exemption. I apologize for the very late application. I submitted it in September. I take partial blame for this. I was handed a notice from the Board of Equalization in late April from our office administrator, and until then I was not even aware that something needed to be filed by December. I wasn't in the office at that time. And during the transfer of papers and duties from the prior treasurer to myself, I misplaced a notice in some of my filing, and I forgot about it. I have to admit it. I received another notice from the office administrator in early September, and I then came down and hand-delivered the application to Mr. Goodwillie here. My apologies again for being late. Shepherd of the Hills is a very committed community partner. We're located on North 61st Street, just south of Sorensen Parkway, a few blocks from Nathan Hale Middle School. We provide a free monthly community dinner and food pantry that is solely supported by our congregation. We also have another organization who helps provide weekly food pantries. They also have clothing and household goods for people in need. Another congregation uses our sanctuary sometimes for their worship services. Our building and property is used for weddings, funerals, Bible studies, vacation Bible school, Sunday school, meetings for various organizations, community organizations. We have Red Cross blood drives there. We have community events such as garage sales. We have a large community garden that we're in partners with the Hartman neighborhood there. Do holiday events and charitable events. We can't really afford to lose our tax exemption. In the last 5 years, we've had 2 interim pastors and several substitute pastors in between. In 2014, we discovered we had an embezzlement occurring in our office, which was a huge setback for us. We also lost a part of our computer records as well. So we spent a lot of time in late 2014 and 2015 trying to piece our financial picture and our office organization back together. We're run by lay people, basically. We had 4 temporary office administrators while searching for someone to fill the position. So I'm assuming that the reason the application wasn't filed in December was because probably no one was in charge at that time. I don't know what happened. I wasn't in the office at that time. So in conclusion, I ask again that you would consider granting us our tax exemption status. We'll strive to file the forms in a timely manner from now on. In fact, a couple days ago, I went online because I said I'm going to go ahead and file it right now, and then I discovered it only has to be done every 4 years.
Well, the full application, there will be a renewal piece.
There is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gearing the website up for people to do that. It's called the Form 451A.
Oh, okay.
Deadline's the same, December 31st.
It is, okay. Glad I'm finding this out. Okay, so we will be on top of that. But like I said, in the last several years, it kind of sounds like chaos at our church. It really isn't, but you know, when you just have a change of office, a change of staff and everything, things that just happens. I apologize.
Sure.
We have a complete new council, and we were not informed of this from the previous council. So we're kind of working on a wing too. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. A wing and a prayer.
And like she said, we've had several pastors and interim pastors and temporary fill-ins, and in fact we've had lay people do the pastoral work, and
exactly.
We're trying to get things straightened out.
Right.
Project Hope is a big asset to us. They're the pantry for the area. We have Crown Tower, which is a big user of the pantry, and also we provide the community gardens for the Crown Tower, and who else in the neighborhood would like to. We got 22 gardens that use that space, plus we have another garden that provides fresh vegetables for the pantry. And, we're doing this with probably about 50 people, and it's remarkable. It's a lot of work.
Okay. Commissioner Boyle?
So we request that we keep our nonprofits, yes.
Okay.
Well, I think you folks did a much better job than I could ever even attempt to. You've covered just about every responsibility that churches should have. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing, all the way from gardening to, food pantries, the whole thing. And this is a very typical operation for churches, small churches particularly, where there are changes and things go on and things happen. And so I'll just simply say I think you're the poster child for a group that should have this exemption. So I'll make the motion that you're granted the exemption that you need and to which you're entitled.
Thank you.
Is there a second? Second. Motion by Commissioner Boyle, second by Commissioner Kraft. No further questions or comments. Please vote.
That's not. Okay. What was the name of the form?
Commissioner Duda.
It's not that one.
Well, there we go. Motion passes.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming down.
Thank you
this
very much.
morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the work that you do, too.
Thank
Is
you.
there
We have
any-
a trunk or treat coming up in the 29th of August. And
October.
For Halloween?
October.
Yeah.
For Halloween? You
For
like
Halloween,
my mask?
yep.
Do you like my mask?
It's open. It's open to everyone.
It's open to everybody.
Okay.
We appreciate some representation.
Great.
Talk to the people in Maine.
Well, you're doing great work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
When is it again?
29th
Oh.
October.
October.
Okay,
Yeah,
and what's the
that's what I
address
saw
is where the church is?
yesterday, so, okay. Thank you very much for your help. Appreciate it.
Great, okay. And what,
Thank you. I think it's
4 to 6? Okay. Good deal. Well, good luck to you, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go. Is there anyone here from New Hope Temple? What is the will of the board on this one? Commissioner Boyle?
Well, I've reviewed all these. I had Sharon make me a hard copy so I could really get into them, and they also are in the group that does this kind of work. They're a nonprofit, clearly, and so I, without any further comment, would suggest that make a motion that they grant the tax exemption to which they're entitled.
Do you want to take Christ for the City International as well? That's
Yes.
the only other one left.
Let's do it.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Boyle, seconded by Kraft. Is there any further questions or comments? Please vote.
Commissioner Kavanaugh. Motion passes.
Next is, there's two other resolutions. Resolution setting tax rates for necessary taxes as provided by Nebraska Revenue Statute 77-1601. And item F, Resolution F, approving applications for tax exemption on motor vehicles recommended for approval by the county treasurer. Is there a motion to approve E and F?
So moved.
And adjourn?
And adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Boyle, seconded by Rogers. Any questions or comments? Please vote.
One moment, please. Okay. Motion passes.
I am going to ask that we go into the agenda for the Douglas County Board of Commissioners, and there's one item that I'd like to take and then go back to Board of Corrections. With that, is there a roll call for Board of Commissioners?
Commissioner Boyle. Here. Commissioner Kavanaugh. Commissioner Duda. Commissioner Kraft. Commissioner Morgan. Commissioner Rogers. Madam Chair.
Here, it's under Health and Human Services Committee, the endorsement of Douglas County to become an ACT work-ready community, and this is brought to us by Commissioner Rogers. Commissioner Rogers?
Madam Chair, if you let me move it up, I'd like to ask Keith Station to come up from Heartland Workforce Solutions, just in case somebody has some questions, but let me attempt to explain it, and Keith, you can fill in the gaps just in case. Basically, there's a term called the National Career Readiness Certification. The board last year agreed to give $30,000 to an effort there at Workforce. They used this to get the certification, and what the certification does is to provide to a person coming into Workforce a set of skills, and these skills are kind of signed off on or agreed to by employers, and when they have this set of skills, this kind of shows employers that they have a certain set of skills, that they're ready to be employed at a certain level. What the ACT Workforce Ready Communities does is kind of solidifies that training into a bigger piece and kind of ramps it up into a team and a structured level. So for instance, you can do it at a state level or you can do it at a county level, and the Workforce Board approved last week or 2 weeks ago through this exec committee to go after it from a county level, because our county is distinct from the rest of the state. So what this would do would make us part of a team through the 3-county level, which is Douglas, Sarpy, and Washington, to ramp this up full speed. It would be data-driven, and it would work with employers at the table and education around the table to take data. From that data, help the teams work together to assemble this national career readiness certificate and assemble the skills together that when a person has these skills, they can work into an employer, and an employer can feel confident that they're ready and have the skills to be employed. Is that a quick and dirty version? Keith.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
Keith Station, Director of Business Relations for Heartland Workforce Solutions. I'm also here with our Executive Director, Aaron Porterfield, and Tammy Green with Metropolitan Community College. Thank you, Commissioner Rogers, for the opportunity. Thank you to the board for a couple of moments. As Commissioner Rogers explained, the National Career Readiness Certificate, or NCRC, is a part of a larger strategic initiative by Heartland Workforce Solutions called Career Readiness to Eliminate Disparities. And so, in a nutshell, that strategy is a targeted solution to bringing job opportunities to the areas of our community that have the highest levels of poverty and unemployment, and finding creative ways of doing so, particularly focused on high demand, high wage, high skill occupations. So this Work Ready Communities designation is an opportunity for us to take that NCRC assessment a level deeper, because the Work Ready Communities initiative requires you to engage the Economic Development Commission, the workforce agency, a K through 12 rep, the community college, and business, and I'm forgetting one, and also local government, to engage in this process that allows you to take advantage of that process for the Work Ready Communities designation. Has benefits in economic development and a host of other things. And so we are excited about joining the Academy. As a matter of fact, we'll be traveling to, the Academy starts tomorrow. So myself and a few other representatives from the team will be traveling to Atlanta to begin the process. So we're excited that we have a cross-section of supporters, and we look forward to engaging in that process. So I'll take any questions if you have any, but otherwise, thank you for your support.
Commissioner Boyle?
Yes. And I'm not very familiar with your organization, so please, if I'm asking something that's stupid, please don't laugh too loud. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me what, if any, is your relationship with Metro Community College?
Sure. Well, for this particular project, Metropolitan Community College is our official subcontractor for delivering the assessment. So the assessment is, there's a 3-part assessment to achieve the National Career Readiness Certificate. And Metropolitan Community College has resources to offer that assessment to job seekers and to some of their program participants as well.
Okay, so are you saying, excuse me.
Madam Chair, can I say one thing that might help you? When you were mayor, it was the Job Training Partnership Act.
Oh, okay.
That's what they are. With Job Training Partnership Act, the Workforce Investment Act, the Workforce Investment Opportunity Act. That's what they are.
Thank you. My old brain just kicked in. Thank you. Let me ask you, what about, this is maybe a little bit different, but are you able to work with inmates at our correction facility? Our director is here today, and is there any possibility, what I've always thought is that the average stay is 14 days, but there's a lot people in there for a lot longer. And I was always hopeful that we could, for example, get a garage nearby the correction facility and have people be taught to be mechanics and so forth, so that when they get out, there's something else for them to do. Do you work with inmates, people who are in facilities?
Yes, sir. This certificate represents a great opportunity to engage ex-offenders or to go within corrections facilities to offer that because it's very important to them as well as to us. And so we have attempted to engage on that front, and we're excited about that opportunity. So that's a huge opportunity to look at best practices from other communities across the country that have utilized this process to great benefit. They have definitely sought partnership with corrections facilities and intentionally gone after re-entering citizens.
Are you able to work with felons who have gotten out of the penitentiary and are out in the community? Are you able to help them, work with them, and what do you offer? Just job training to them, the felons, or do you offer that to felons?
Sure. In general, our organization does engage and is and can. And this particular project, the National Corrections Certificate, they are eligible for this as well. There are no exclusions. As a matter of fact, it is aligned with our target to focus on the areas of highest occurrence of poverty and unemployment, and it aligns perfectly with bringing that opportunity to ex-felons or to people
But do you ever work with felons who need to and want to get a pardon? That probably is beyond the scope of what you do, but do you ever do that?
I'm not sure. I haven't directly, but I guess I don't know if we
probably not.
Have.
The answer is probably not.
The mechanism we have would be a referral to know who the appropriate entity to refer that person to would be.
Great. And finally, I want to ask you, we have a really successful diversion program working from county and district court, mostly county, with United Way. And they do take people who have committed offenses and they are sentenced. They can choose, either go to jail or they can serve X number of hours of community service. And we find that we place the United Way's done a terrific job in having something like 150 to 175 employers who will take someone to do the community service. They even take, some will take sex offenders, which is pretty incredible. So they do have a terrific placement program, really good success completing. Do you get involved in any of that by any chance? Is that way off the track too?
Well, that would be an example of a partner that we would engage with so that we can be a mechanism to refer. So you know, we have a host of co-located partners at our location, and we also have non-co-located partners that we engage with, and a service like that would be one that we would want to have in our network. So when the appropriate persons come along, we can offer that referral and know enough about it to make sure we make a useful referral.
Do you have a relationship with that diversion program, United Way? Probably not.
We do.
You do? Yes. Wow. Okay, well, listen, you've really done a terrific job of educating me, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add a point? You know, they've also, for a while, when we had the grant funding, and he's still down in Wrigley, Mike Myers, we had a person that was working down there from corrections through grant funding. So Mike Myers and those guys are talking all the time.
Great.
So they've been working for years on it. So, I mean, with that, I would move for approval of it.
I'll second that.
Okay. No further questions or comments? Please vote.
Thank you for bringing that up, Chris.
Okay.
Thank you.
You need to talk to Dan because he needs to get you the resolution that you need to put into the app.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep, you bet. Motion to recess and move to the agenda for the Douglas County Board of Corrections.
Second.
Please vote.
The word recess with corrections I've never really seen.
Motion passes.
Agenda for the Douglas County Board of Corrections. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner Kavanaugh, Commissioner Duda, Commissioner Kraft, Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner Rogers. Madam Chair.
Here, item 1, approval of the minutes of Board of Corrections meeting held Tuesday, September 13, 2016. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Commissioner Boyle, second by Commissioner Duda. Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes.
Citizen comments. Is there anyone in the chamber wishing to speak to the Board of Corrections about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to the report from our Director of Corrections. Yep. Good morning.
Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Yeah.
That extra day is throwing me off just a little bit. You have before you the Board of Corrections report for September 2016. Enclosure number 1, I'll call to your attention, we are over our projected budget. This is anticipated given our population. Population continues to remain high. This morning we're at 1337, but that's in part due to the 3-day weekend. But do see a bit of a tick down, but I will keep you apprised as to the progress of that population into November. Enclosure number 2, Community Corrections. Nebraska Supreme Court approved the operational procedures for the Veterans Treatment Court in Douglas County. We continue to participate on the planning committee and will partner with the court on an ongoing basis. Veterans Treatment Court plans to officially begin November 4th of this year, next month. Interviews of candidates will begin with inmates currently assigned to the Veterans Housing Unit in the very near future. So we're very excited about that. It's another piece that we can add to our programs that and opportunities that we have in that particular housing unit. Community Corrections developed partnerships with a couple of local businesses in addition to those we are working with now to provide job interviews at the Criminal Justice Center. Thus far, these partnerships have resulted in 22 work release and RAP clients gaining employment. Work release administrator John Skanes and the other employees there who were involved are committed for starting or continuing this very important program and continuing to go out into the community to seek opportunities for clients that come through those programs. Personnel will oversee the social work initiative, who are overseeing the social work initiative at Corrections, travel to Boise, Idaho, where social workers have been deployed in their jail for almost 20 years. They looked at a lot of processes, and much of what they saw in Boise, Idaho can be replicated in part here in Douglas County. So very excited about the outcome of that particular trip and getting that program up and running soon. Nebraska State Probation was awarded a 3-year, $1.7 million grant from the Bureau of Justice Assistance to provide transitional housing assistance and other services to local and state offenders released to Douglas County. Douglas County personnel and metro area continuum of care for the homeless assisted with the grant application, which will be limited to serving offenders released to Douglas County. Plans for launching this program are underway. And I mention that because when this opportunity came through, we looked at it as a way to address some of the other initiatives that were driving our population. I think it's very important that we signed on to this grant. To Mike Myers and Justine Wall, Gary Davis, and he put a lot of effort into this grant. We used a lot of our data to help with this grant. Obviously, it was all hands on deck. It was a quick turnaround timeline, but I think this is a very important initiative. And if we did not have some of the programming infrastructure within the state that we have right now, we probably would not have got this grant. So it shows that we're moving in the right direction. It's being recognized. What we're doing is recognized by BJS, and certainly going to take advantage of it with this grant. And as you know, part of diminishing the likelihood of a return visit to my place is having a place to live and the case management piece that goes along with it. I'm moving to the 24/7 alcohol sobriety program. There were 17 new admissions for the month, 2,479 breath tests, 7 were positive for alcohol use. There were 4 no-shows for testing. The overall compliance is approximately 99%. 34 individuals were monitored for a total of 814 scram days, no no-shows to download, and only 2 tampering violations, 1 alcohol violation. Overall scram compliance was approximately 99%. Community Corrections Manager Mike Myers presented to members of the Judiciary Committee and representatives of the Nebraska Attorney General's Office at the state capitol on the benefits of Douglas County is seen as a result of implementation of the 24/7 program locally. So again, we're taking something that we're doing locally and presenting it to other individuals in the state so they can potentially replicate what we're doing here, which is what we did, replicating what we saw out in Minnehaha County in almost a couple of years ago now. Work release submitted 46 individuals. Those individuals donated 1,231 community service hours. House arrest had 74 admits, and those individuals donated 193 hours of community service. Reentry Assistance Program, or RAP, admitted 27 individuals. 5 individuals achieved their forklift certification through Metropolitan Community College. Speaking of certification programs, I think, again, that's very important. And speaking to Justine Wall, she indicated that the clients were really excited when they're able to attain that type of certification, so they have something tangible when they walk out of here, and they can provide it to a prospective employer when they lay down their application. Corrections programs, 58 individuals were admitted corrections programs in the jail. With regard to pretrial services, 32 individuals were referred for priority prosecution, saving 612 bed days. 383 individuals were placed on pretrial release. 1,075 were managed, and 403 inmates visited the law library. And excuse me, that's a typo. It should be the 336 number. I have to take care of that in there. With respect to enclosure number 3, compliance. United States Marshal Service, as you know, we house Marshal Service prisoners on site, and those individuals from the Marshal Service came in last month to conduct their annual inspection. With regard to personnel, enclosure number 4, new hire class 16-2 began the Correctional Officer Academy on August 29th, and they graduated September 30th. New hire class 16-3 scheduled to begin the Correctional Officer Academy on November 28th of this year. And I would expect 20 to 25 additional hires as a result of sitting that class. Speaking of our population, enclosure number 5, there were 1,499 admits, 1,511 releases. Our high count for the month was 1,349. The ADP, or average daily population, was 1,321, 5 down from 1,326 last month, so it's not a whole lot of movement from August to September. United States Marshal Service population was down a bit, as was the ICE population increased. Felony pretrial population increased, misdemeanor pretrial population decreased. Female population was down, however, there's still 3 large female housing units open, and those are all 64-bed units. I would call to your attention the charts that I put in the back of my cover sheet, and I added a couple of charts. You can see the population history chart, and you can see the ADP for July, August, and September, how high they are compared to 15 calendar year, and it looks like it's leveling off just a little bit. And also, I call to your attention the monthly comparison pretrial population. That's really impacting our population. I spoke to it before. And we have this chart in the book, but I bring it here just to emphasize you see that spike, those spikes in the pretrial population for the months of really June, July, August, September, compared to 2011, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So a really significant year for us in terms of our pretrial population. And again, other criminal justice partners are seeing the same increase in their business, so it's just impacting us along at a different point in the continuum. That, yes. No, in my cover sheet, 4 and 5. Okay, closure number 6, intake screenings for medical, 1,369. H&Ps for the health and physical, 615. We had 337 discharge referrals. We transitioned our discharge planner, and that program's back up and running, so we've got good data again coming into October, November. Closure number 7, mental health, initial psych assessments, 112. Initial mental health assessments, 62. There were 62 mental health infirmary placements for the month, and referrals to community-based mental health services, outpatient psych, mid-management, 12. Mental health and co-occurring disorder treatment programs, 156. Mental health therapy, and there were no long-term psych placements this month. I would also ask that Ann Sales come to the podium. Since she's a bit of a cringe, but she knew I was going to invite her to the podium. I have, as you know, Ann is CCS, is our mental health director, and every month I speak to you about the volume of mentally ill coming into the facility and the acuity level of those individuals coming in, and I can't say enough about the hard work that all of my staff do with regard to interacting with some difficult aspects of our population. But I really want to take my hat off to Ann. Every time I have an issue, I call Ann, help, or something, calls come in from the outside, day or night, weekend, holidays. I get the calls, Ann gets the calls, and she is very competent in what she does, and it's very comforting to call someone with really difficult problems, and Ann's right on top of it. So it's a bittersweet that she's moving on. And I just want to take this opportunity to publicly recognize her for the work that she's done in the mental health unit. And it's really, really, really a tough job. And my hat's off to you, my hat's off to your staff, and thank you for your effort during the tenure that you've had here with the Department of Corrections.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We're going to miss her, in other words. But the big operation that we are, we have a new individual coming through. He's here today, Sandeep Singh, and he's seated in the back, and it's a big shoes to fill.
Good.
So he will be taking over for Ann, and as I said, the transition is very important, and Ann gave plenty of notice, so we can make that smooth transition. And Mr. Singh has a lot of experience in the community, so we're looking forward to his arrival, and again, a smooth transition with respect to what we do in the mental health unit, mental health component of what we do at the Department of Corrections.
Thank you. And welcome, and we'll carry on and continue to do good things.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Dr. Fox, I'll just briefly, I know we'll talk about this at the Administrative Services Committee meeting following the board meeting, but could you outline for us the benefits of the public safety bond issue to the Department of Corrections, particularly in light of your record high populations?
Sure.
Just reference.
What we presented thus far, as far as the bond issue is concerned, will afford us the opportunity to do some remodeling work up in the older side of the housing unit, what we call the old side of the housing unit. Certainly, replace doors, windows in those units. Those need to be replaced. Those doors are manually operated right now. We will be able to control those doors from a single access point, which will provide us safety and security upgrades, obviously, for the staff who work in those units and for the inmates who are assigned there as well. The plexiglass windows that are there in some of the interior units are graffiti. It's been up since 1978, 1988. scratched up, very difficult to see in low light situations at night, for example. We will have upgrades to those. We'll upgrade the fire sprinkler system, which in 1978 wasn't added, so that's going to be an upgrade for us as well. Certainly going to upgrade the lighting in those areas, and as you know, effective lighting in low light situations or during the daytime, given the old configuration of the jail, is going to be really critical to the safety and security of the operation of those particular areas. And we're also going to be able to upgrade our HVAC, which includes some of the fixtures, plumbing, things of that nature as well. So there's a lot of things that we need to ensure the operational effectiveness of those units. If those units go down, then that's either a 32, a 36, or a 40-bed unit that I have to close. Right now, as you see from the ADP, I have no units closed. So I need all of my units to be operational, and I'm confident that we have suggested the right upgrades to make those units viable into for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Very good. Thank you.
Commissioner Boyle?
I wanted to ask, thanks, Sam. I wanted to ask if the board would, in light of the agenda, which should be relatively short, but pretty soon, if we could do a brief tour of the correctional facilities that we haven't done for quite a while. It might, if that's okay with you,
yes,
Dr.
sir.
Foxall. Maybe we could do that and spend some time down there as we're required to by law to get a look at what's going on. So I'd like to suggest that after the board meeting, if we have no other meetings.
Anything else?
I do have one more thing, just under new business. A month or so back, we received a stack of cards accompanied by a letter, and it says, I'll pass it around, it says, "Hope is alive." And it came in unsolicited and quite bad. This administrative assistant said these were dropped off at the front desk. And it says, "Hi friends, thank you for giving us time to bless you with these cards. What started as a service project turned into an ongoing work of love. As an example of the love she has poured into these cards, over 2,300 have been done, all going to different precincts, fire stations, missions, hospitals, sheriff department, and people in assisted living situations. Not to mention individuals we've met or passed by while out in the community who work in these fields. Her heart lies in sharing her love and appreciation for what she sees in you and the accomplished feelings she has in giving back. Also, the prayers she says she has for you, your families, and believing God will make it a blessing for you through these cards. Thank you so much from her heart and mine for living in service to our community every day. We're truly blessed by this. Blessings, Isabella and Michelle, Mom." And I'll pass this around, and she made several hundred of these cards, passed them out to the staff, and I just want to, haven't really had the opportunity to thank her on behalf of the staff for taking the time to make these so that we could pass them out to our staff. And again, I think it's recognition that the work that the men and women of the Department of Corrections do is very difficult, and I really appreciate the fact that members of the community, such a young member of the community, recognize the efforts of what those individuals do and the toil every day, and I just wanted to share that with the board.
That's neat. Thank you. No other further questions or comments or issues for Board of Corrections? Do we have a motion to adjourn and go back to the Douglas County Board of Commissioners? Roll call. Please vote. Sorry. Had myself there. Yeah.
Motion passes.
That he's going to cater from Anthony's for lunch, so we should go over there.
We have a committee meeting.
Oh, we do?
First, you know.
Dang.
So agenda for the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Boyle.
Here.
Commissioner Kavanaugh. Here. Commissioner Duda. Here. Commissioner Kraft. Here. Commissioner Morgan. Here. Commissioner Rogers. Madam Chair.
Here. Item A, approval of the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held Tuesday, October 4th, 2016. And item B, approval of claims submitted for payment processed through Tuesday, October 11th, 2016. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Kraft, second by Boyle. Questions or comments? Commissioner Kavanaugh? Please vote.
Motion passes.
Next is our consent agenda, items A through G. There is one note on our resolution for item A on our 911 director position offer. We need to add that we are allowing, adding $3,500 for relocation services. We don't expect it to be all that amount, but we did say we would put that in there. So could we take item A first, and is there a motion to add $3,500 for relocation fees?
I'll move that. Second.
Any questions or comments on that one? Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Just a comment. I note that on other personnel matters, when we take action, most recently on a number of county attorneys, new hires, that we always list the salary range. And I don't know if it's in, I don't see in the supporting documentation a salary range for this item, although it notes on the agenda that it's budgeted. What is that number?
Commissioners?
Yes.
The salary is going to be $120,000 to start and $128,000 after 6 months upon successful completion of the probationary period.
Okay. There is a motion and a second. No further questions on item A.
Madam Chair, if I may, this, just to clarify, it's just to add in that language?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Please vote.
Motion passes.
And now B through G. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
No, that was it.
Nothing. Commissioner Boyle?
Yes, I was looking at item C, the resolution to approve a 3-month extension to an agreement with Catholic Charities. Is there a, I'd like to ask our legal counsel, I guess it's Diane who did this, is there a provision here for non-discrimination?
This is, the original contract would have had those provisions that are standard for contracts, and I believe that that does include a non-discrimination clause in the original contract, and this is just extending that for 3 months, so I would say yes.
Do our contracts now, I'm not sure what's in here, but do our contracts now forbid discrimination based on sexual orientation?
I don't believe so, no.
Are we ever going to do that?
That's a policy question. I think what it does is it mirrors the language that's within the state statute.
Okay, thank you.
No further questions on the rest of the consent.
I would like that held, I would like voting on C separately.
C?
Yeah.
All right, so a motion for B through G minus C. Is there a second? Please vote.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Is there a second? Motion by Commissioner Duda, seconded by Commissioner Rogers. Please vote.
Just one moment, please. Okay. Commissioner Rogers. Motion passes.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Boyle?
I'd like to make a comment. I voted no on C, and I am going to pay closer attention to all of our contracts that provide services to members of our community. We need to come to grips with the policy that does does not discriminate against people because of sexual orientation. So I'd like to get that on somebody's radar so that we discuss that. I have tried to get this through the Douglas County Civil Service Commission, and the response I got is let's wait to see what the state does, and of course the state didn't do anything. The city of Omaha has an excellent ordinance in place, and I really think we ought to mimic it. So I hope we get that on our radar. I'd like to ask you.
The HR committee meeting?
That'd be a good idea. Thank you.
Yep. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
I'd just like to join Commissioner Boyle. I think that's a good idea, and I'd be happy to assist in the drafting.
Great.
I think it's long overdue.
Thank you.
Next, citizen comments. Is there anyone in the chamber wishing to speak to the Board of Commissioners about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to public hearings. There's a public hearing on a zoning regulation text change application submitted by Douglas County Environmental Services. And hi, Doug.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just need a second here, if I could. Okay, so the Planning Commission did meet on August the 10th. We had 8 of 9 members present. This was the first meeting of our new member, Dave Levy, who you recently appointed. So, agenda item number 1. Okay, I'll figure this out. There we go. Is a text change, and it is to add a construction batch plan as a special use permit in the Ag District. So, a construction batch plan is already defined in our zoning regulations, and it's currently a permitted use in mixed use 3, light industrial, and general industrial. But when we sat down with the applicants, we saw 2 different opportunities. One was to rezone, to allow a construction batch plan as just a permitted use in ag, which of course probably wouldn't be a good thing. The other option would be a special use permit in ag. And we looked at the current special uses in ag. They allow a recycling collection, recycling processing, and resource extraction are all special uses. Those 3 are somewhat similar to a construction batch plant. Now, as you know, changing the text of the zoning regs does not automatically allow a use everywhere. It, especially as a special use, if you change the text to allow this, the special use only allows the applicant to apply for that special use. We then notify neighbors, we post a sign, we advertise it in the paper. There are public hearings with the Planning Commission and public hearings with you. So the special use permit gives the county the maximum amount of control. So that is the route that was chosen. The Planning Commission, the Planning Commission agreed with us, recommended approval of this text change on a 6 in favor, 1 no, and 1 abstention vote, and we will ask that you concur with that recommendation to approve.
This is the public hearing. Commissioner Boyle?
Well, I'll yield if there's someone in the audience.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak for or against this item? Come on down. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Bob Bittner, and I am representing the family that owns the property, and I'll be the lease holder for the ready-mix plant. It's a concrete plant, is what it is. Mm-hmm. I'm here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you for being here.
I have a question.
Commissioner Boyle?
Can you tell me what is it that you're doing with the property?
We're going to put up a small ready-mix concrete plant.
Ready-mix concrete plant?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I'm not real familiar. Could you give me the address again? I guess I missed writing that down.
Excuse me, Commissioner, this item is just the text change. I wonder if maybe your questions aren't more appropriate on the next agenda item, which is a specific special use.
Okay, that's fine. Why don't you have a chair in the front? Okay, so let me ask you what. I'm a little concerned. It looks like it's. I mean, is there an expiration to this special use permit, or is this perpetual? That you have to come back and renew it like these people with nonprofits do? Do you have to come back every year and ask for something?
There is no set time on the text change, Commissioner, but we can set a time for the specific special use.
Okay. Can you show me the map again, please?
Oh, absolutely.
Claire, do you know where this is?
How about, I don't know,
They
let's go.
speak French out there, if that's any.
Speak French out there. That's, I always say that. It's out in France. Okay, now let's see. That's
It's west of Bennington,
okay.
west of Highway 31,
Okay.
and it is right across 216th Street from the current operating landfill.
Okay. So it's directly north of the landfill?
Directly west.
Directly west.
And I do have some better pictures here, Commissioner Boyle. Let's see here. Does that help a little?
I think so. Let's see. Where is it? Is the top of the whatever that is? Is that north at the top?
That is Dutch Hall Road.
Okay, that's Dutch Hall Road. I got it then. So the landfill is right in that area, isn't it?
Right
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Okay.
And this
All right.
proposed property is,
Okay. Does the applicant own the home directly to the west there? Is that a home?
over here?
Yeah.
I do not believe, I don't know.
Well, I know there's some homes to the west. The reason is that years ago we had quite a few complaints from people about, different things, odors and ash and all sorts of things blowing around. It's all under control now by Waste Management, but just wondering, if those people are, I know they were notified or will be notified.
They were notified.
They were notified, okay.
Yes, sir.
And that's good. If there's no objections, that's fine. And what will be, and I'll wait till the next application comes up, but that helps a lot. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so right now, this is the public hearing for the text change only. Commissioner Duda?
Quick question on this, Doug. When these construction batch plants go in, typically is this done on a temporary basis, or could this potentially be permanent? I mean, I think of them as just going up for a few years while there's some project going on, but could this potentially be a forever permit?
It could be, and one of the conditions you'll see later on is that staff does an annual review. So let's say 5 years from now, they don't need to be there anymore. We would come back to you to revoke that special use at that time.
Okay.
And that is the joy of a special use versus a rezoning, because a rezoning is permanent. A special use, you can put a time frame on that.
Thank you. Very good.
Commissioner Boyle?
I have another question. How far west does the landfill actually go? Does it go to that blue line, or is it 300 feet to the east, or?
It stops at 216th Street.
It stops there, but I mean, how far is the operation actually? Do you know?
It's almost a mile.
Okay, but I mean, here's what I'm driving at. Seems to me we ought to be discussing the possibility of that property being an extension of the landfill. So I just wonder whether we're digging ourselves a hole and discovering, oh my God, we should have never granted that permit.
Well, Commissioner Boyer, the landfill also has a special use permit.
Okay, but I'm just saying, maybe we need that land they're applying for, maybe we need that for landfill in the future. I know it's a long ways off, but.
At least 100 years.
Well, 99 years and 2 months or something.
Ken?
Mr. Holm?
Commissioners, if I could interject, Ken Holm, Director of Environmental Services. If you look at the map, this entire parcel that is outlined in blue is the former landfill site, the recycling and disposal facility site that was opened by Waste Management in roughly 1988, 89, and that operated as the county landfill until about 2003, I believe, when it moved over to the Pheasant Point landfill, which is over here. This parcel that is involved in this does not have any trash on it whatsoever. All of the trash that was put in this landfill is from roughly this tree line here to the west. So this particular parcel over here has never had any trash buried under it. This was always used for just maintenance and operations for that operating landfill, which is now closed. I don't know if that helps helps your concern.
It does and it doesn't, because
Okay.
years ago I was on the Land Reutilization Authority, and we had property being sold in North Omaha, and I asked an embarrassing question: did anybody ask the city if they want these lots? And they went, oh. So they did ask the city, and they said, my God, yes, we've got all sorts of. So our sale was stopped, and the city was given priority to buy these lots, so they didn't end up in the hands of somebody, who was not going to be cooperative. And I'm not saying that about this landowner, but I'm wondering whether, I know it's a long way off, but where in the world would another landfill be sited in Douglas County? And the answer is nowhere.
Right.
So that's why I think we ought to be talking about, thinking about, if nobody has, regardless of what the use was before, that sometime in the future that land, we ought to take some steps to work with the owners to do something, to have some kind of an option on it or something to give us a chance to take that over in 2109 or whenever it is that's going to be filled. That's my thought, just kind of thinking ahead.
Okay, good point, Commissioner. One of the beauties, going back to tag on what Doug kind of pointed out, with the value of a special use permit versus rezoning the property to industrial. It's zoned ag right now, it's staying ag zoning.
Okay.
The special use can have conditions on it.
Right.
So, for example, when that particular item comes up this morning, you could place a 5-year, 10-year, whatever type of a time limit on that. And at that point, then you can reassess. When that comes due, you can reassess that. And I think there's a lot of options out there. That was one thing that we thought through a lot. Doug brought that up and said, hey, this just doesn't make sense for us to have a rezoning here. The special use permits the county to put the appropriate conditions on it to protect the interests of the public, and it allows you a lot of flexibility.
Okay, well, I don't want to interfere with what's being requested by the landowner, but at the same time, I want to make sure the county's protected. So I'll be asking you, how long we should make this special use permit, one of you two gentlemen. So I'll think about that when we hear this application. Thanks a lot. That helps tremendously.
Thank you.
Thanks.
There is a motion and a second. Or no, we're in the public hearing, sorry. Any other or further comments during the public hearing? I'll close the public hearing. What is the will of the board?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Boyle, seconded by Commissioner Duda. Please vote.
Question, if I may, though. Is there a time?
That's next.
Okay, all right, thank you.
He votes yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, next public hearing is a special use permit application submitted by BDE LUD LLC in care of Richard Deaver. This is the property that we were just talking about here on North 216th Street.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and that's where we are, west of Bennington, west of Highway 31, west of the current operating landfill. So that shows, I can do that slide, right? We'll just move on from that one. Okay, so this is a picture of the comprehensive plan. The pink area up there is designated, it's not zoned, but it's designated as landfill. And you see this little green thing right here, that's the tree line, and it would be this area right in here where they're proposing the special use. This specific special use is approximately a 16-acre tract. It's not 40, it's 16. We requested them to narrow the boundaries of the special use as small as possible. So they did that. So here again is the zoning map. Again, the current landfill is ag, the old landfill is ag, the proposed location of the operation is also ag. And there's a better picture. Okay, so again, existing operation, the old landfill, and then right here is the OPPD methane project. So now, bear with me as I take you on a little tour of the property. So as we are driving north on 216th Street, over on your left-hand side would be the OPPD methane operation. You'll note that 216th Street is hard surfaced. Here's a little closer picture of the methane operation. If you look at the chimney there, you can see a little bit of flame coming out there. This is the entrance into the property. You'll see it's presently closed. The methane operation would be off on your left-hand side. And if you turn around and look south, down 216th Street, the entrance to the current landfill is off to your left. The OPPD methane operation is off to your right, and straight ahead would be Highway 36. So this is a map that they provided that shows that they are using a lot of the current infrastructure. And
Who's they?
the applicant,
Okay.
the proposed applicant. So as you drive through the gate, off on your right-hand side, this is the old office building. It looks like a modular or manufactured home. They would, initially they proposed to use it, but they found out that Mother Nature has not been very kind to this building, so they will displace some wildlife and they will be replacing this building. You can imagine kind of wildlife. Here is the location of the scales. This is what the trucks that went to the old landfill drove through here. You go down a little bit and you look off to your right, and up here is the proposed building where their entire operation will take place. And we'll get you a little closer. There's the building again. This area to the south of the building, this would be used for some limited storage of materials. This is looking at the east side of the existing building. And you'll note in the minutes of the Planning Commission there was a lot of neighborhood comments. They were concerned about dust. And so the applicants explained that they will have dust collectors, they will have silos similar to, this is not the building, this is just a generalized picture, but the building that's there would have those type of silos with dust collectors. Again, keep in mind the entire operation is in the building, the existing building. And then this picture shows the posted sign. So the Planning Commission did recommend approval with a number of conditions, so I'd like to go through those with you. The first one is there will be a maximum of 12 concrete trucks. Again, production takes place entirely within the existing building. All state and OSHA permits will be obtained prior to the commencement of operations. And this we thought was very important. Operating times are no more than the landfill's current operating schedule. So when the landfill is open with trucks going in and out of there, this operation will be open. When the landfill is closed, this operation will be closed. We felt that coordination was very important. Staff will perform annual reviews and present a report to the Planning Commission. The applicants consent to random staff inspections. Now, I don't want you to be afraid of that. I'm not going to drive up there and get out of my truck while they're doing operations and stuff. I would give them some notice, but I'm not going to give them 2 weeks notice. So, and I will wear a hard hat. The Planning Commission minutes state dust control will be as described tonight, but that's not fair to you because you don't know what that was. So. I'm going to talk to the person that wrote those minutes and get that taken care of. So what that means is that all internal roads will be hard surfaced within 1 year of the opening, and fugitive and production dust will be controlled through the use of dust collectors, water trucks, and other standard practices. That's what was discussed at the Planning Commission meeting, so that's what's really relevant. And then the operation is limited to the site plan as presented in the Commission's packets, and that slide is that one. Okay. So the Planning Commission did recommend approval, and we will ask you concur with that recommendation.
Okay, Commissioner Boyle.
I wanted to ask, and I'll make it real clear, is this for a concrete operation? Is that what it is, producing concrete? This is, we're getting beyond, I guess I should be talking to him, but, because we've approved it. Could you give your name again, please?
Yes, sir. My name is Bob Bittner.
Okay.
I reside in Sarpy County.
Okay. And what is your relationship with the property? Are you the owner or their agent?
Agent.
Agent, okay. I'm still not real clear what it's being used for. Is it for like a construction site where you make concrete and move off and pave things, or what is it you do?
No, sir. It'd be a retail business.
A retail business?
Yes, sir. Somebody needs concrete, they would call in and place an order, and we would deliver it.
Oh, okay. So it's like any other ready-mix plant. Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you call them and say, I need so many yards or whatever,
That's
and then you
correct.
go from there. Okay. And were there any conversations about the route that you use or anything because of traffic or anything? Any complaints or concerns about that?
I don't remember the gentleman's name with the state.
Okay.
We did talk about the traffic
Okay.
volume. And
All right.
we talked about number of trucks and things like that. And
You think it'll be 12, huh?
yes, I mean, for that size of the operation that we're putting in, that's the max that plant
Okay.
will be able to.
So the trucks coming out will say ready mix on it?
They'll have a company name on it.
Some
yes.
company, okay.
Yes.
Then the neighbors, all they really complained, or not complained, but questioned was the dust and so forth. Is that really the main thing?
Yeah, yes, sir. The main thing that I got out of the first meeting is that people had a different view of the construction batch plant.
Yeah.
They thought it was a cement manufacturing facility.
Okay.
And it's just it didn't say a concrete batch plant. It said a construction batch plant. So there were people in the audience that had paperwork with them that thought it was like Ash Grove Cement or Lafarge Cement, a huge manufacturing facility. And I had spoke to a couple of the landowners there, and they were relieved that it's going to be a little concrete plant.
Okay, so is ash one of the products that you use to make concrete?
We can use fly ash, yes.
Okay, and so that in other parts of the state, particularly in Sarpy County, there's quite a bit of problem with ash, I believe.
Mhm.
So I hope, I'm concerned about that. But if it's all been covered and people are pretty satisfied, okay. One of the things I'd like to ask you to do is, in South Omaha, we have signs that say, if there's a manure spill, call so-and-so on the streets, because that happens.
It does.
I'd like to see you put signs that are visible to the public who say, we can be reached at, and give your phone number. So I hope that they're able to contact you if they do have a complaint. They know where to go. It makes it a lot simpler.
I'd be glad to do that.
Okay. And how long do you intend to have this operation here, do you think?
As long as we're successful.
Okay.
Douglas County has placed, I think, a lot of, I don't want to call them restrictions, but they've set the bar pretty high for us to perform.
Okay.
Safety, all the state and federal requirements, we're going to comply with whatever we need to.
Okay, and the concern I mentioned earlier about was the possible need to expand the landfill, and I do want to protect the county's interest in being able to obtain the land. I mean, of course, we can condemn it, which we don't want to do, but there's a lot of buildings on there that I wasn't aware of. But we need to have that option, and I'd like to say it out front that you're sitting, in my estimation, I could be wrong, but I think you're developing something in an area that, not tomorrow, but 25 years from now, if you're running fine, everything else, you could find yourself the subject of we want that property. So I don't know what to say about that, but except to say that I think you should be aware of that, because somewhere in the future, I really think this is going to be turned into a landfill. I really do.
My business plan is based on 10 years.
On what?
10 years.
10 years, okay. Well, listen, I think that's a good idea. I think it looks like a good use of the land, and I have no objection to it, just so long as you're duly noticed that you could be sitting on some property that we'd want to take or get sometime.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question in terms of, I think you said it, that you have to follow, even though we're putting restrictions on, you have to follow, like any other ready-mix plant, all of the conditions and operations set forth by state statute and federal regulations and all of that.
Yes,
Yes.
in the state NDEQ, they set the standard, and we have to follow the air and water permits as we do with the county.
Okay.
And they're very robust.
Okay. And then on the only other thing with special use permits, the ones that we've done in the past, we've always had like an annual review from the department to the board that just tells us if there have been neighbor complaints or operational difficulties or whatever. I didn't see that in other than your random spot checks.
Number 5 there.
Oh, it is there.
It does
okay.
say planning commission,
Okay.
but we can add
That-
in county board.
Yeah, we always just got a real short notice that said review was done, no complaints or 2 complaints, and this is what they were. And
Yep, we can add
Okay.
that, Madam Chair.
okay, good. Anything else during the public hearing? Anyone else wishing to speak during the public hearing? I will close the public hearing.
Commissioner Boyle, did you want us to add a condition, number 9, this permit expires in 10 years?
Or how about renew?
Or is a review in 10 years?
Yeah.
Well, what's the difference? I mean, expires, and he'd have to, or someone would have to apply for another special use, which isn't all bad. The review is another matter. That's just kind of looking at it and see if it's going okay, but, I don't know whether, would it cause you difficulty if it said expire instead of review? 15 years better?
Well, 15 is a lot better.
Yeah.
And I don't see the review process as being a problem. If we have to.
How about expire?
Go through, that's fine.
If it expired in 15 years?
Yes, and I would like the opportunity to come back to the,
apply for
through the
another.
proper channels.
Right.
I'd like to see expire. I'd like to see expire in 15 years.
Okay, so if we do expire, then we would fill out a whole new application, publish in the paper, notify neighbors and so forth. It'd be like starting over.
Oh, brother. Huh?
Let's just go with review.
Yeah, we'll go with review instead. 15 years, right?
Right.
And this is how I envision a review, so let's make sure we're all on the same page, that we would advertise it in the paper, it would be on our website, and it would be on an agenda, but we would not post a sign.
Right.
We would not send letters to neighbors,
Right.
but it would be in the paper, though.
Right. Right. Ken?
Ken Holm, Environmental Services Director. Interjecting the word renewal, and we use the term renewal in some situations with special use and conditional use permits. So throw out the option of after 15 years, the applicant would have a renewal option, and that kind of helps address some of the additional from having to start over again. Would that potentially be acceptable? And for another 15-year period?
Yeah, I think so. And the county would have the opportunity to say no deal at that time. Okay. Yeah, I'm for that. That sounds good. Do any of our legal beagles want to speak up? Oh. Everything sounds okay then.
Okay, so we'll, this is the public hearing still, so.
I think I made, I thought we closed it.
Did I close the public
I thought so.
Okay.
I made a motion to approve.
Okay, that's right. So you want to add number 9
I
and
think so,
say
yes.
renewal, 15-year renewal,
Yeah.
after 15 years,
Option to renew.
option to renew.
And of course, that comes back to the county board through
Right.
you. Okay. Claire and I will still be here.
So,
I'll be sitting
no
here going, yeah,
further
I'll give it a vote.
questions or comments?
I'll only be 87, what the hell.
Do we have a second?
I'm sorry?
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Please vote.
Motion passes.
Madam Chair.
Good luck to you.
Commissioner.
Mr. Bittner? Mr. Bittner?
Yes.
Are you related to Barney Bittner?
If it's spelled B-U-E-T-T-N-E-R.
Oh, no, it's spelled differently.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to say something to Doug.
Uh-huh.
Doug, I really appreciate the presentations you make, particularly with the slides that are readable. We need to get everybody to do that. Your department does a great job of that, and you make an excellent presentation. You really do good work. We're lucky to have you.
I do. Thank you very
We
much.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Doug.
With that, we'll move to committees, the first being the finance, and the only thing under there is the budget report.
Well, that's why
as presented.
PJ's not here. He took some money and left. No, as reported.
And then human resources, weekly personnel report from civil service as presented, unless anybody has questions or comments. There are no legislative, although we did mention a couple legislative items that Marcos took note of today and will work on. Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Yes, I'd just like to note that immediately following the board meeting here today, we will have a public safety bond issue, a public information PowerPoint by Mr. Bloomingdale in 9:03. We urge all interested in this important issue to attend. That will be immediately following adjournment of the county board meeting today.
And Jim is going to talk about the committee that's operating to pass the bond issue.
Okay.
Big disclosures coming.
Uh-huh. Exec session? No exec session, and we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Please vote.
Commissioner Rogers.
We go right to 9:03 now.
Yeah, and then we'll.
Now. Right now.
Motion passes.